Welcome. This is a quiet story about what might lie beneath us, beneath the ground, beneath memory, beneath what we're allowed to know. A place called Dulce Base. Let the words come slowly. Let your thoughts drift. And if you fall asleep while listening, that's perfectly fine. Let's begin. Chapter 1, The Whispering Desert. It begins in the north of New Mexico in a stretch of land where the sky seems impossibly wide and the earth rolls in slow, silent hills. In this quiet corner of the world lies the town of Dulce, small and tucked away from the noise of modern life. A place where time drifts like dust across the red sand. The air is dry here, fragrant with juniper and pine. The wind carries the sound of distant birds and the occasional rustle of branches. Coyotes cry out at dusk, and the stars arrive like an ocean poured out across the heavens. Dulce is peaceful, remote, and often forgotten. But some say the land here keeps secrets. Stories have always surrounded this part of New Mexico. The people of the Jicarilla Apache, whose land Dulce rests upon, have passed down tales for generations. Tales of strange lights in the sky, of beings that do not walk like men, of places where the earth hums beneath your feet, and where the air feels just a little colder than it should. In the summer of 1979, a man named Thomas Costello arrived in Dulce. He didn't make much of a stir when he first showed up. Just another quiet face, renting a room, passing through, they thought. But Thomas wasn't a tourist. He wasn't a researcher or a writer or a hiker. He came with purpose, with eyes that looked like they had seen more than anyone could name. He rarely spoke. When he did, his voice was quiet, like he was always measuring his words. He kept to himself, mostly. But on clear nights, he would walk to the edge of the town, just past the last fence, where the land opens into wild, endless desert. He would stand there for hours, staring at the Archuleta Mesa, a ridge of rock and earth that rose up from the landscape like the back of something ancient buried in sleep. Locals said he seemed to be listening. No one asked what he was listening for. Not long after his arrival, strange things began to happen. First, it was just little things. Electrical flickers. Radios crackling with static even when they were turned off. Animals behaving strangely. Dogs refusing to go near certain patches of land. Then came the lights. Silent glows in the sky that didn't move like planes or satellites. Lights that hovered, darted, vanished. Some of the older townsfolk weren't surprised. They had seen those lights before. They simply shook their heads and turned back to their porches. But others were unsettled. They said the air felt different. Thicker. Humming. One morning, just before sunrise, a rancher named Miguel Rivera drove his pickup out to check on his cattle. What he found was disturbing. Several of his cows were missing. 2 were found dead, their bodies untouched by scavengers. But they were unlike any predator kill he'd ever seen. Clean incisions, no blood, no signs of struggle. Just silence and the smell of metal in the air. Miguel told the sheriff. The sheriff shrugged and said it was probably cultists. Or maybe coyotes. But Miguel had been in Dulce his whole life. He knew coyotes. He knew what they could do. And he knew this wasn't them. The next day, Thomas Costello left town. But not before leaving behind a small, worn notebook. It was found by the innkeeper who had rented him the room. She said he had looked tired. More tired than anyone she'd ever seen. She opened the book, thinking it might contain an address. But there was no name inside. No numbers. Just pages of strange drawings and notes, written in tight, careful handwriting. The drawings were of tunnels, diagrams, maps of something deep beneath the Archuleta Mesa. There were symbols she didn't recognize, and names she couldn't pronounce. She brought it to the library, then to the town historian. No one knew what to make of it. One page stood out. At the top was a single word, Dulce. Beneath it, a sentence. Simple, uneven. Written as though the writer's hand had been shaking. It goes deeper than anyone knows. The notebook disappeared not long after. Some say it was taken by government men who showed up a week later asking quiet questions. No one could prove it. No one could remember their names. They were polite, but firm. And they weren't seen again. And after that, Dulce returned to its silence. But those who had seen the lights never forgot. The ranchers who had found their livestock mutilated never stopped wondering. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind picks up and the desert grows very still, people say you can hear something beneath your feet. A distant hum, faint like the memory of a machine. Those who believe in the story say there's a base beneath the mesa, deep underground, carved into the rock, a place where government science and something else, something not human, work side by side. A facility hidden from the world. They say it has 7 levels, and each level goes darker than the last. But that's just a story, isn't it? Just a whisper on the wind. Still, if you stand at the edge of Dulce when the night is quiet and listen, you might just hear it too. Chapter 2. The Man Who Knew Too Much. After Thomas Costello vanished from Dulce, the town settled once more into its usual rhythm. The markets reopened, the cattle wandered, the stars filled the sky just as they always had. But beneath the surface, something had changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was more like the feeling you get when someone's watching you. Like a breath on the back of your neck that vanishes when you turn to look. Some of the townspeople continued to whisper about the lights. Some wondered about the strange notebook. Most tried to forget, but not everyone could. About 3 months after Costello disappeared, another figure entered the picture. His name was Charles McAllen. He arrived not by accident, but on purpose. He wasn't there to see the mesa or take in the desert views. He came with questions. Charles had been a journalist once, long ago. He worked for a few independent papers out of Denver. Quiet stories, unimportant ones. But over time, he had grown restless. He believed there was more going on in the world than people wanted to admit, more than governments wanted to reveal. And he believed Dulce held a piece of the truth. He had read about Costello in an obscure article printed by a fringe publication in Arizona. Just a few paragraphs. Theories. Rumors. A strange man, a secret base, a government cover-up. But something about the details stuck with him. The timing, the quietness of it, the precision. He packed his car with a few supplies and drove south, across Colorado, and into the dry lands of northern New Mexico. When he arrived in Dulce, the town was warm with early autumn sun. The mesas glowed red in the late light, and the wind carried the dry scent of dust and cedar. Charles checked into the same roadside inn that Costello had stayed in. The woman behind the desk recognized the name immediately. "You a friend of his?" she asked, not unkindly. "Not exactly," Charles said. She narrowed her eyes, but didn't press. Instead, she handed him the key to room 4 and told him if he was looking for stories, Dulce didn't have many. But Charles didn't come for stories. He came for the truth. He started asking questions. Not too loudly, not too directly. Just enough. He sat in diners, bought people coffee, listened more than he spoke. It didn't take long for him to piece together the outline of what had happened. The strange man, the mutilated cattle, the notebook, the lights in the sky. No one wanted to talk about the lights. Not in daylight, not in public. But when the evenings grew long and the air turned cool, people started to speak in quiet, tired voices. They told Charles that something had been happening near Archuleta Mesa for years. Decades even. Lights. Sounds. Rumors of helicopters without markings. Military trucks without plates. Doors in the desert that hadn't been there the day before. One man, an older rancher named Elias Cordova, said he remembered a night, back in the 60s, when he heard a sound like thunder that never stopped. It came from underground, he said. The sky was clear, no storms in sight, and the ground had trembled slightly beneath his boots. He said he felt it in his teeth. Charles asked him if he ever saw where the sound came from. Elias looked toward the mesa and shook his head slowly. "No one sees it," he said. "They only feel it." Another woman, Anna Lupe, told Charles about the children. Not her own, but 2 from the community who had gone missing for 3 days. When they returned, they couldn't speak. Not because they wouldn't, but because they had no memory. Their eyes were blank, she said. Like they had seen something too large to carry. Charles wrote everything down. Not in a computer, but in a small leather journal, the kind with pages that crackled slightly when turned. He kept it close even when he slept. He trusted paper more than he trusted machines. He began walking the perimeter of Archuleta Mesa. He didn't climb it, not yet, but he observed. Every morning at dawn, every evening at dusk. He noticed things. Birds avoided the summit. Shadows seemed to stretch oddly across the ground in the late hours. Once, he heard a humming sound. Not loud, but steady, as if the rock itself were alive. It vibrated in the soles of his shoes, low and constant, like the whirring of a machine buried miles below. He followed the rumors deeper. And then, one night, a note appeared under his door. It was written on plain paper, folded once, without name or signature. "Stop looking." Charles didn't stop, but he did grow more cautious. He stopped asking questions in town. Instead, he began leaving voice memos on an old handheld recorder, speaking quietly to himself each night. "They know I'm here," he said in one recording. Or they know someone is. The mesa. It's not just geological. There's something built into it. Cut stone in places that shouldn't be cut. Tracks without wheels. "I think I found a ventilation shaft." He didn't say where. Then, after 5 days of silence, he made another recording. His voice was shaking. "There's a door," he whispered. "It's disguised as part of the cliff. Seamless, almost. But the stone gives slightly when you push in the right place. I didn't go in. Couldn't. Something was behind it." That was the last recording. Charles McCallan disappeared the next day. His car was found at the edge of the mesa, keys still in the ignition. The tank was full, the tires untouched, but he was gone. In the back seat was his journal, but every page had been torn out. The only thing left was a note scrawled on the inside cover, written in a hand that might have been his. Or not. It said only this: "They are not who you think they are," and nothing more. The authorities searched for a few days. No footprints, no sign of struggle, no answers. The townspeople went quiet again, and the mesa stood still and silent as always. But deep underground, where light does not reach and stone gives way to something else. The hum continues. Some say Charles found what he was looking for. Others say he simply got too close. And others believe he was allowed to see, just for a moment, so he would know. And then be taken. Dulce never speaks of him now. But those who remember quietly. And the wind still moves through the desert, slow and constant, carrying the weight of secrets too old to name. Chapter 3, the first level. For weeks, the mesa said nothing. The sun continued its slow arc over the desert sky. The wind blew steady, brushing through the sagebrush and pinyon pine. Dulce stayed quiet as it always had, and the world seemed to forget again. But deep below the Archuleta Mesa, things moved. Not quickly, not loudly, but with purpose. If one were to walk along the northern edge of the ridge, past the scrub, through a narrow rock passage nearly hidden by the natural shape of the land, there would be a spot where the sound of your own footsteps changed. The ground, hard and dusty in most places, took on a different feel. It sounded deeper beneath your heel, like there was space below. No door is visible to the naked eye. No metal hatch, no warning sign, but the entrance is there, embedded in the stone, masked by technology older than most would understand. The locals never speak of it. Not openly, but a few of the older ones, if you caught them in a moment of honesty, might say that they know where it is. That they've seen it open. Only once. Only long ago. What lies beyond that entrance is not a cave. It is not a mine. It is something else entirely. The first level beneath the mesa is known only by a handful of names. To some, it's referred to as access control. To others, simply level 1. It's the first step in a world that shouldn't exist. Once inside, the light changes. It is not harsh or glaring. It is cold. Clinical. The walls are smooth, metallic, but without visible seams. No bolts. No wires. Just a surface that feels cool to the touch, even when the air is warm. Level 1 is quiet. Deceptively so. There are no obvious sounds of machinery. No footsteps echoing through long corridors. The silence feels engineered, like it was designed to mute thought itself. The level is said to be divided into sectors. No signs, no arrows, but the personnel know where they are going. They always do. There are people on level 1, human mostly, but not all of them wear uniforms. Not all of them look like soldiers or scientists. Some wear plain clothes. Some don't speak at all. The purpose of the level is orientation. It is where new arrivals are processed. Contractors, engineers, medical staff, interpreters. Some are briefed in a white room with no furniture. Others are led straight to elevators that descend without sound. Most are never told where they truly are. They are shown diagrams. Told it's a military complex. a deep earth installation for aerospace testing, a weapons development facility. Some believe it, most pretend to, but not everyone arrives willingly. Some come blindfolded, some arrive unconscious, some are never seen again. A man once escaped from level 1. Not far, only as far as the mesa's outer cliffs. He made it to the surface, delirious and barefoot, muttering nonsense in the dark. He was found by a shepherd before sunrise, crouched beneath a rocky outcrop, hands raw and torn. He didn't give a name. He only asked for water. When asked what had happened, his eyes grew wide and wet, but his voice stayed even. "There are doors," he said. "Not all of them open out." When pressed further, he said nothing else. Later that day, he was taken by men in a black vehicle. They showed no badges. They said nothing. The man didn't resist. He seemed relieved. No one ever learned who he was. On level 1, there are cameras in every corner. But they don't blink. There are no indicator lights. No sounds of recording. They are small, embedded within the walls themselves, watching constantly, not just the people who enter, but the people who already belong there. The structure is circular, though you'd never know it from inside. Every hallway turns gently, subtly. Walking for too long in a straight line eventually returns you to where you began. There are no windows. There are no clocks. Only the soft glow of white lights that never change and doors that open only when allowed. Some of those doors lead to lower levels. And some do not lead anywhere you should go. A former employee, known only by the pseudonym Hollis, once spoke in a quiet, late-night interview broadcast over ham radio. The tape no longer exists. It was destroyed, along with the home of the man who made it. But the transcript remains. In it, Hollis described level 1 in calm, measured words. "It's not a lab," he said. "Not like people imagine. Not glass and wires and machines humming. It's more like a waiting room that doesn't know it's waiting. The air feels filtered through a silence you can't break. And the people, they're either afraid or pretending not to be." When asked what he saw on level 1, Hollis was quiet for several seconds. Then he said, "I saw things arrive. I saw things leave. I stopped asking questions after the 3rd week. They don't need guards. The fear is already built in." The interview ended after that. No one heard from Hollis again. Level 1 is just the surface. Just the beginning. It was built to be forgettable. Ordinary. Empty. But beneath it, the levels go deeper. And each one changes the rules. Some who work there never leave level 1. Others go down and come back changed. They speak slower. They sleep less. They sometimes forget names they've known their whole lives. And in the quiet spaces between their thoughts, they hear things. Low sounds, deep tones, and sometimes voices. Level 1 is the threshold. A point of no return disguised as a clean corridor and a polite security badge. Once you pass through its quiet doors, you don't come back the same. And the hum below grows louder. Chapter 4, The Silence Below. Beneath level 1, there's no staircase. Only an elevator. It is soundless. Not quiet, but entirely absent of sound. You step inside and the door closes with a hush like a deep breath. The panel on the wall is smooth. No buttons. No floor numbers. There is nothing to press, nothing to touch. It moves when it's told to. Not by you, but by something else. The ride is brief, but not short. There's no sensation of descent. Only stillness. The kind that makes you question if you're moving at all. Some say you arrive before you know it. Others say you never stop falling. When the doors open, you are on level 2. This level is called Operations, though few ever call it by name. It's larger than level 1. The ceilings are higher. The halls stretch longer, but they still curve. The light here is different, cooler, dimmer. A soft gray-blue glow that reflects dully on the floor. Level 2 is where things are done. Where plans are made, data is gathered, communications are tracked, and movements are monitored. It is a place of screens, but not the kind you'd expect. They do not flicker. They do not blink. They emit no hum. They are silent like everything else here. Rows of glass panels line the walls. Maps that shift without animation. Live readouts of signal strength and seismic activity. Photographs with no date stamps. Language samples that don't resemble any known script. There are people here, too. More than on level 1. Some wear uniforms. Others wear plain suits. Many do not speak. They move with purpose as if guided by something unseen. They do not ask questions. They do not look up from their screens. At the center of level 2, there is a room with no label. It is sealed by a door that only opens when approached by a specific few. Those who are allowed inside never stay long. When they leave, they walk slower, as though something about the room is heavier than it should be. Inside, it is said, is the core monitoring hub. From here, all lower levels are observed. Not watched in the way security footage is reviewed, but studied like a distant forest or a wild storm system. From here, they track the things that move in the lower levels. They observe and they record. They do not interfere. Most of the people who work on level 2 have never been below it. They have no clearance. They do not ask. But sometimes the elevators do open. And when they do, the ones who come up from below are not always the same as they were when they went down. A technician named Linda Carr worked on level 2 for 6 years. She monitored signals, logged frequencies, nothing more. She lived in on-site quarters and rarely left the facility. She was quiet, reliable, and preferred to be alone. Then one day she was called down. No explanation. No reason. Just a summons. She returned 3 days later. No one knew what she saw. She wouldn't say. She stopped speaking entirely. Her notes became erratic, filled with looping symbols that resembled language, but were unreadable. She began sleeping on the floor, whispering to herself, pressing her hands to the walls, as though listening for something deep inside. Eventually, she was removed. No one knows where she went. Her quarters were emptied, her records erased, but those who remember her say her eyes never stopped moving, as though she had seen something she wasn't meant to understand. Level 2 is not designed for discovery. It is designed for distance, to observe, to record, to communicate, but not to touch. The deeper truths are kept below. Still, the level carries weight. Not the physical kind, but the feeling of pressure, like standing on the edge of something vast and hidden. There are no windows, no clocks. The lighting never changes. People begin to forget time. A few who have worked there long enough say they no longer dream. They sleep, but when they wake, it feels as though only a blink has passed. Some forget entire days. Some forget entire months. There are reports, though unofficial, of mirror anomalies. Reflections that move a second too late. Faces that don't match the angle of the viewer. Some employees have requested all mirrors be removed. One by one, they were taken down. Now, level 2 holds no reflections. Only screens. Only watchers. And always the silence. That perfect, manufactured silence. If you press your hand to the floor, they say you can feel it very faintly. A low vibration. The hum of machinery. Or perhaps the breath of something deeper. Something vast. Something waiting. The purpose of level 2 is control. But control is not the same as understanding. Below this floor, the rules begin to shift. Below this floor, knowledge gives way to mystery. And those who go lower do not come back the same. If they come back at all. Chapter 5, The Echoing Halls. There is no alarm when you enter level 3. No signal, no change in light. The elevator simply opens, and something feels different. You can't point to it at first, but you feel it. The air is cooler, not in temperature, but in texture. It brushes against your skin as though it's aware of you. There is no wind, but something about the atmosphere moves. This level is not for everyone. Most personnel from the upper floors never step foot here. The clearance required is higher. The questions are fewer. Those who are brought here are escorted, never alone. Level 3 is known, unofficially, as the interface. It is where the boundary between the human and the unknown begins to blur. The corridors here are longer, wider. The walls are no longer smooth like metal, but something else. Something darker. Matte and faintly textured like stone that has never seen sunlight. And the lighting comes not from above, but from within the walls themselves. A soft, steady glow. Pale green, sometimes white. Sometimes blue. There are no ceiling lights. No wires. And yet everything glows. Some sections of the level are still under construction. Or perhaps they always were. Hallways lead into sudden walls as though the space itself shifts. Floors curve. Corners turn inward. A few paths seem to loop back upon themselves, impossible in design, but real nonetheless. And then the first chamber. It is not marked. There is no door. Just an opening cut into the wall at an angle too precise to be natural and too perfect to be human-made. Inside, the sound changes. Everything echoes just slightly. Even your breath. There are no windows, and yet the chamber is not dark. At its center sits a column. Tall, smooth, black, reflective in a way that doesn't show your face, but shows your shape. The surface hums when approached, not audibly, but in your bones. No one knows what the column does. It reacts to presence. Some claim it pulses when people come near. Others say it emits symbols, floating briefly in the air before vanishing. Nothing has ever been recorded. Nothing shows on video. It doesn't behave the same way twice. And so far, no one has touched it. Not twice, at least. One technician, his name never released, once laid his palm on its surface during a system test. The room fell silent. All power was lost. Lights, air, instruments, everything stopped. For 13 seconds, the base went still. When the power returned, the technician was gone. Not injured. Not dead. Gone. His security badge was found on the floor, just outside the chamber. No sign of struggle. No trace. Only silence. The column still stands, and it still waits. Deeper into level 3, the layout becomes less structured. There are no signs, no guides. And yet, those who work here seem to know exactly where they are going. They follow patterns that can't be mapped. Paths that defy geometry. A circle that leads to a square. A hallway that leads to itself. Some speculate the base didn't grow downward. It grew inward. At the far end of the level is a large, domed room. This space has no name. Inside are consoles, large, curved, and unmarked. The materials are unfamiliar. They don't shine. They don't reflect. They just exist, smooth and seamless, as though grown rather than built. This room is the closest thing to contact. Here, things are translated. Languages that are not languages. Sounds that carry meaning without words. Patterns that speak without speaking. Few are allowed into this room. Even fewer understand it. A linguist named Dr. Elise Varn once studied here. She had worked with lost dialects, undeciphered codes, and early cuneiforms. After just 2 months on level 3, she asked to leave. Not for a break. Not for time off. But to go home. When asked why, she gave a simple answer. It knows I'm trying to understand. She left that same week. Her records were sealed. What she read in that room, what she heard, what she believed, it remains classified. But a note was found in her research notebook, written softly in the corner of a blank page. Said only, it doesn't want to be translated. It wants to be remembered. Level 3 is the threshold of contact. It is where human technology meets something older. Something deeper. Some believe the level was not built, but uncovered. That the chambers were found, not designed. That the base was expanded around them, layer by layer, trying to learn without awakening what lay below. Others believe it is a form of communication itself, a structure meant to speak. Not with sound, not with light, but with presence. And yet, level 3 is still only the beginning. The next level is where the walls begin to change, where the structure becomes unfamiliar even to those who work there, where shape, sound, and space start to behave differently, where the human mind is no longer the only observer. And below it, the pulse grows stronger. Chapter 6, What the Walls Remember. The descent to level 4 is unlike any above it. There are no elevators here, at least none that move in ways we understand. The transition is strange. Some describe a long hallway that narrows until it opens again. Others say it's a platform, smooth and bare, that simply moves downward when you stand still long enough. There are no buttons, no levers. You don't call it. It knows when you're ready. Level 4 is colder. Not freezing, not sharp, but deep, like the air beneath an ancient mountain lake. It wraps around you slowly, not to harm, just to remind you, you are no longer in a space built for people alone. This is the first level shared, by humans. And something else. The layout is not uniform. Corridors fork and curve. Some ceilings rise 3 stories high. Others slope until you must duck to pass through. The lighting is uneven, not broken, just different. soft amber light in some corners, pale blue in others, and sometimes a glow that has no source, as if the air itself remembers how to shine. Here, the walls begin to change. They are not steel, not rock, not something you can easily name. In some places, they seem to pulse, subtly, as though the material itself breathes. Not constantly, only when you're quiet enough to notice. Those who work on level 4 are fewer in number. Some wear no uniforms at all. Others wear black with no markings, no names, no rank, no insignia. There are no loud voices here, no shouting. Even footsteps fall softer, as if the walls absorb the sound. They say the walls remember, not in a metaphorical sense, but truly, that they retain impressions, that moments, decisions, even thoughts leave echoes. Some believe the material is organic, not alive but responsive, a memory surface, a witness, an interpreter. Once, a man named Harris was assigned to observation on level 4. He spent 8 weeks logging activity in the West Wing, though no one ever said what kind of activity it was. He reported nothing unusual. He filed his notes. He returned each evening to his quarters. And then one night, as he walked the southern corridor, he heard his own voice echo back to him. Not his footsteps, not a whisper, his voice. A sentence he had spoken earlier that day, repeated exactly same tone, same rhythm, as though the wall itself had stored the sound and chose that moment to release it. He reported the event. He was moved to level 2. He never returned. They say the walls do this more frequently now, but only when it's quiet, only when it's dark. There's a section of level 4 called the vestibule. No one knows who gave it that name. It is not marked on any official blueprint. But those who have worked there use the term quietly, like a memory they didn't choose to keep. The vestibule is a long, round chamber, circular with no corners. The floor is soft beneath the feet, not carpet, but something with give. Something that remembers pressure. At the center of the chamber is a basin, shallow, smooth, and dry. The material of the basin has no known match. It doesn't reflect light. It doesn't retain heat. But when approached, some say it feels aware. Not alive, but noticing. Scientists have tried to study it. Spectral analysis, temperature testing, vibration, electromagnetic field readings. Nothing stays constant. Every time it is measured, it gives different results. It refuses to be known. A physicist named Leclerc spent nearly 2 years trying to decode its properties. He left behind pages of equations. None of them repeat. None of them align. When asked what he believed it was, he said, "I think it's not a thing at all. I think it's a place, but very small and very old." He requested reassignment. He was granted it immediately. He never spoke of it again. Some believe the basin is a doorway. Others believe it's a recorder. A few believe it is a mirror, not one that shows you as you are, but as you once were, or might one day become. There are areas of level 4 no one is allowed to enter. Not even those with the highest clearance. They are marked by silence. Not signs, not locks, just a difference in air pressure. A different kind of quiet. And if you listen, sometimes you hear something on the other side. Not voices, not footsteps, but a rhythm. A slow, patient rhythm. Like breathing, like memory, like the steady pulse of something enormous resting far below. In the deep east passage, there is a wall with no seams. It looks like the rest. Quiet, smooth, still. But every 37 days at the same time, 2:12 a.m., it changes. For 1 minute and 49 seconds. The change cannot be recorded. Cameras fail. Sensors read nothing. But those who've seen it say the wall moves. Not forward, not backward, but inward, as though folding into itself. And during that time, you can hear something inside. A single note. Low. Constant, carried not through air, but through you. People have tried to understand it, to replicate it, to map its tone. None have succeeded, but many dream of it afterward. The same sound, the same presence, waiting. Level 4 is not just a space. It is a boundary, where what is human begins to blur, where the familiar fades and the ancient memory of something else listens. You can't always see it. You can't always hear it. But it's there, in the way the light curves, in the way your name feels different when spoken aloud. in the way your reflection no longer looks away when you do. And beneath level 4, it becomes more than memory. It becomes form. Chapter 7, Beneath the Skin of the World. The path to level 5 begins with nothing. No lights. No doorway. Just a hallway that ends. And then doesn't. Those who are clear to descend find it not by searching, but by being found. They say the corridor folds open. That the wall, flat and silent, changes texture beneath the hand. That a pressure builds, not loud, not sudden, but deep. Like a thought before it forms. A signal. And then you step through. You don't fall. You don't descend. You enter. Level 5 has no schematic. No floor plan. Every measurement changes. What is 30 meters long becomes 50. A room walked clockwise loops back on itself, but counterclockwise opens into new chambers. Time is not consistent here. Watches stop. Heartbeats slow. And yet no one dies. They say this level was not built by the base. It was built around. The floor is not metal. It is not stone. It is something smooth. Something like bone, but warmer. When you walk, there's no echo. Only silence. And then the sound begins. Not external. Not heard with the ears. But inside. A resonance. Like a low string stretched tight across the chest. As you go deeper, it grows stronger, not louder, but closer. There are structures here. Not rooms. Not halls. Shapes. Towers that spiral but never rise. Chambers that breathe, not with air, but light. Some doorways have no walls. Some walls, no beginning. They say this level is alive. Not in a way that eats, or thinks, or dreams. But in a way that knows. People who enter level 5 begin to forget how long they've been inside. Some report seeing symbols etched into the walls, geometries that defy perspective. Circles within angles. Spirals within flat planes. They do not move, but they do shift slightly when unobserved. Some believe they are a form of communication. Others think they are warnings. The base does not interfere. It records. It monitors. But it does not change level 5. There is a central space called the hollow. It is not empty. It simply feels that way. You step into it and something leaves you. Not a part of your body. Not a memory, but a layer of thought. A surface that usually sits between your mind and the world. And then the world is closer. People speak more softly here. Some stop speaking altogether. In the hollow, time becomes soft. Some say they've stood there for minutes. Others say hours. All exit at the same time. As though time recollects itself afterward. In this place, a man once kneeled. His name was Dr. Adrian Riel. He came from Cambridge. Brilliant, quiet, focused. He specialized in ancient mathematics, patterns found in both biological systems and cosmic radiation. He was cleared for level 5 after 5 years in the base. He spent 12 minutes inside the hollow. When he came out, he sat down on the floor. He did not speak for 5 days. Then, when asked what he saw, he said, "Everything that is buried is still dreaming. Some dreams shape the ground above them." And then he asked to go back. He was denied. 3 days later, he left the base. He has not been seen since. Others have reported visions. Not hallucinations. Visions. Of cities with no windows. Of lights that move like wind. Of beings made of angles too sharp to be seen, but somehow beautiful. Not human. Not hostile. Not welcoming. Just present. Level 5 is not a place of answers. It is a place of form, where the unspoken becomes shaped, where memory has weight, and thought becomes mass. In some chambers, the walls vibrate, not with motion, but with awareness. There are areas you cannot walk into, not because of locks, but because you simply can't. Your feet stop moving, your breath changes, and some part of you turns away. There is one hallway, long and thin, with a curve that doesn't match any known geometry. Those who attempt to walk its length vanish from view after 30 steps. They always return, but none have ever spoken of what lies at the end. Not once. They sit quietly afterward, not afraid, not shaken, just still. And if you ask them what they saw, they will blink slowly, look past you and say, "It wasn't meant for us." But it saw me anyway. Level 5 is not where discovery ends. It is where discovery is replaced by witness, where silence speaks, where structures dream, where time folds inward like breath returning to the lungs of something deep below. And beneath it, the pulse grows stronger. It is no longer just a sound. It is a presence. And the next level is where it begins to speak back. Chapter 8: The Language Without a Mouth. There is no map to level 6. There is only the path that opens when you stop looking for it. It does not appear when summoned. It does not obey clearance. It waits, and then it chooses. Those who are brought to level 6 often don't remember the journey. They recall walking or riding or being led. But the memory breaks apart midway like a sentence cut in half. What begins in one hallway ends in a place with no beginning. Level 6 is not like the others. It is not simply lower. It is elsewhere. It exists beneath the base, but not entirely within it. Some say the geometry is partial, that this level is shared between locations, that it exists in more than one place and more than one time. The walls are no longer material, not in any stable sense. They shimmer not visibly, but perceptually. You look once and see a curve. You look again and feel distance. A third glance reveals only darkness, but darkness that seems to be listening. And always there is the hum, not a machine, not a drone, a voice, wordless, endless. It does not enter your ears. It arrives inside you without path or permission. Some say it is a language. Others say it is memory, but all agree it is not human, and it is not trying to be. In one chamber, round and vast and gently pulsing, there is a pattern etched into the floor. It moves slowly, like ink in water, shifting shapes beneath your feet. No one has decoded it, but those who've seen it claim to understand something anyway. Not with the mind, with something else, something older, a deep understanding that doesn't use thought, that arrives already known, as if the message was planted long ago, and you are only now remembering how to hear it. There are artifacts on level 6, not tools, not objects, forms. They do not rest on surfaces. They do not cast shadows. Some float, some flicker. Some remain still but feel in motion like a word that hasn't been spoken yet. One appears as a ring, impossibly thin, hovering midair. A biologist once placed his hand through it. He pulled back, slowly, and wept. Not from pain, not from fear, but from clarity. When asked what he felt, he said, "It said my name in the part of me that was here before I was born." No one asked him to explain. He left the base that night and never returned. There is a corridor that leads into what some call the listening room. It is not a room in the traditional sense. There are no walls, no roof, no floor, only presence and silence, except it isn't silence. It is a voice, not heard, known. It does not speak in words. It speaks in arrangements, of time, of memory, of shape. Some have described visions, not hallucinations. Visions of stars that breathe, of oceans beneath glass, of beings made of song and heat and color so deep it bends space around them. None of it is seen. All of it is understood. And then forgotten. Not lost, but stored. Somewhere beneath the surface of who you are. One translator, brought from the outside world for just one assignment, was allowed to stand in the listening room for 30 seconds. When she returned, she was changed. Not visibly, but those who knew her before said her eyes never looked directly at anything again. Only through. When asked if she could translate what she'd experienced, she said, "It didn't speak in a language. It spoke in recognition. Like it remembered something about me that I didn't know was mine." Then she smiled. Not warmly, not coldly, but peacefully, and left. Level 6 is not studied. It is experienced. Not all are invited. Not all return unchanged. Some leave with silence inside them. Others leave with names that no longer feel like their own. And a few do not leave at all. Not because they're lost, but because something deeper is found. And in the center of level 6, there is a chamber with no dimensions. It has no entrance, no exit. And yet those who are meant to be there arrive. It is called the Vault of Listening. Not officially, not in any document, but by those who have touched its presence. Inside it is said there is no self. Only sound, only shape, only understanding. Not comprehension, not knowledge, but something purer, something quieter, something older than language itself, something that listens back, and beneath it, the pulse is no longer distant. It is here, not loud, not urgent, but steady, as if whatever is below is beginning to wake. Chapter 9. The Sleep of Giants. Level 7 does not welcome. It accepts. There is no door, no hatch, no stairwell. You do not find it. You arrive, sometimes alone, sometimes in silence, sometimes by accident, but always when the level is ready. Here, sound has no echo. Light does not behave. Shadows move in ways they shouldn't. Straight lines curve gently, and space feels slow, like it's thinking before it lets you pass. There are no lights on level 7. There is no need. What exists down here does not need eyes. It does not need sight. It remembers everything through presence, through weight, through proximity. The first thing you notice is the stillness, not absence. Stillness, as if something vast has paused its breath, not in fear, but in patience. The floor is not cold, is not warm either, feels neutral, flat but alive, a surface that waits. Some say they've walked across it for hours, yet their legs never ache. Time moves differently here, not slower, not faster, just sideways. You might feel a memory that isn't yours. You might recall a name you've never heard, and always that gentle weight in the air, like standing inside the lungs of something sleeping. No one speaks here. Voices don't carry. And even when you try, your own words feel smaller, like they shrink between your mouth and the space around you. Some have tried to measure this level. They placed instruments near what appeared to be a structure, something massive and sunken into the floor, shaped like a half-buried crescent. All instruments failed. Not violently, just quietly. Their screens went black, their batteries full, their data erased as if they'd never been powered on. The structure, if you approach it, hums in your chest, not from the outside, from within, as if something inside you recognizes it, or remembers it. A geologist once described it as a fossil of a thought too old to think. She never returned after her first visit. A single sentence from her final report remains unredacted. It reads, "It's not asleep because it's tired. It's asleep because we are not ready. No one knows what sleeps down here, but all who enter sense it. Something enormous, not in size, but in presence. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. It doesn't see, but it notices. And in that noticing, you understand something simple. You are very small, not in worth, not in meaning, but in scale. You are a line inside a word, inside a sentence of something greater." Some have described formations in the far corners, structures with no symmetry but unmistakable purpose. Columns that lean into shadow, rings that hum when you approach, pools of liquid that reflect nothing, not even light. A researcher once dropped a small stone into one of these pools. The ripple never ended. It kept moving outward, soft and slow. Days later, it still hadn't stopped. There's no explanation, only quiet, and the knowing that this level is not about learning. It is about reverence. Beneath every footstep, beneath every silent wall, something waits. Not malicious, not kind, just still, as if the base was never meant to contain it, only to hover above it. Like scaffolding above a cathedral no human could build or worship in. They say, at the center of level 7, there is a chamber that cannot be found on purpose. It appears when you are quiet enough, still enough, aligned. Inside, there is a shape. It doesn't shine. It doesn't move. But it draws everything inward. Not physically, spiritually, as if everything you are becomes a thread, gently pulled toward the center. One technician called it the gravity of meaning. Another, a linguist from Prague, whispered a single phrase after seeing it. "The oldest dream has a body, and it breathes beneath us." Then she left. The base let her go. No questions asked. Those who work on level 7 do not call it level 7. They call it the bedrock, because here, nothing lies beneath. Only depth itself. Only the place where the veil ends. And what dreams behind it waits. And just below it, one final level. One final truth. No longer silence. No longer shadow. Just the beginning. Chapter 10, The Threshold That Whispers Back. No one builds a path to level 8. Because there is no path. Only arrival. Only the moment where everything above becomes memory and everything ahead becomes real. Those who reach level 8 don't always remember how they got there. Not because it's hidden. Not because it's dangerous. But because our minds are not shaped to carry what waits below. Level 8 is not a place in the way the others were. It is not carved. Not constructed. It is present. It is where the layers of the base fall away, and something else remains. Some call it the threshold. Others, the heart. But most who speak of it, if they speak at all, call it simply the below. There is no light here. Not because it is dark, but because light cannot express what is here. The space is vast, but not empty. There are no walls. No sky. Just pressure. Not heavy. Not crushing. But complete. You feel it the moment you enter. The way a child feels the presence of something in a room before they know what a shadow is. There is sound, but not from outside. It rises through you. Not music. Not a hum. Something older than either. Something like intention made audible. It's not words, but it speaks. Not to your ears. To your structure. To the shape of you that existed before you learned to name yourself. And as it speaks, something happens. Not suddenly. Slowly, gently, you begin to understand. Not what it is, but what it isn't. It isn't waiting to be discovered. It isn't hiding. It isn't alien. And it isn't ours. Simply is. And always has been. Not beneath the base. Not beneath the earth. But beneath awareness. It is the foundation behind foundations. The thought behind thought. And for the first time, it notices you. Not just humanity. You. As if you were the echo of something it once knew. Or loved. Or shaped. Or released. In the space of that noticing, time doesn't slow. It stops. It dissolves. You are not past. Not future. Only present. And then, it speaks again. Not with sound. But with certainty. A message that isn't sent, but completed. As if it had always been traveling and you've just now arrived at the moment you could receive it. It says, you are not alone in your becoming. You are not first. You are not last. You are the echo made warm by distance. And in that moment, you feel the truth of it. The base, the programs, the science, all of it was never built to contain. It was built to approach. To edge closer. To the mouth of the original language. The below is not speaking now. It is listening. Because it is your turn. To speak. To send back the echo. Not in words. In feeling. In presence. In being. And you understand, that's what it has always wanted. Not answers. Not worship. Not control. But witness. Not someone to measure it. But someone to meet it. And as the presence around you softens, as the space within you deepens, you begin to rise. Not through levels. Not through stone. But through self. Back to the memory of silence. Back to the body that carried you here. Back to the thought you had before you were born. You were returned. Quietly. Gently. Not above. But whole. You are no longer searching. You are part of the thing being searched for. The base remains. The levels still hum. The lights still dim. The walls still remember. But now you remember too. And far below. Where no steps reach it. Where no doors open. Where the oldest presence waits. You know. It is still listening. And it is still whispering. But no longer alone. Because now you are there. And the threshold has spoken back. Thank you for listening. Sleep well. Dream deep. And remember, some echoes travel for a very long time, but they are always meant to return.